start by introducing ourselves. My name is Matt Blum. I'm the managing editor of Geek Dad. I have two kids, ages 10 and about to turn 9.
I'm Brian McLaughlin. I'm one of the contributors for Geek Dad, and I have two children, one age 1 and one about to turn 3.
And I'm Helen McLaughlin. I am a core contributor for Geek Mom, and I run a science experiment blog, Lady Astrid's Laboratory, specifically for science experiments for kids. And we share children, so I have a 1-year-old and an almost 3-year-old as well.
So, thought we'd ask you guys what sort of things you wanted to hear about, because we can talk about geeky stuff, we can talk about parenting stuff, but we could also bore you to tears by doing that if we don't, you know.
Yeah.
What do you want to know about being a geek parent and raising geek children?
Coming to geek conventions, how are you finding the balance between being a geek parent and attending geek cons that may not, or maybe geek parent kid friendly?
Did everyone hear the question?
Okay.
It's not always easy. There's always a few things that you might not necessarily want your kids to look at. You know, there's a few maybe a little more adult-oriented stuff in the vendors room. So you have to kind of walk them by that. Like, move on, nothing to see. Yeah. But and of course you don't get to do everything you want to do necessarily, because the kids they need to eat when they need to eat. They can't, and they I mean, it depends on the age, obviously. Teenagers will go off and do their own thing, I'm sure. I haven't had a teenager yet, so I don't know yet. But,
and we don't.
but at least my kids are they consider themselves geeks already and are proud of it. So they love, looking at comic books and sci-fi stuff and
Doing science
experiments. Yeah, they were having an absolute blast in the kids' programming room. So.
Well, and that's with our kids being 1 and 3, we actually have them with the grandparents right now, because it's when you get up a little bit older and they're not going to just dart away if you say, okay, stay close or something like that, and they'll actually listen. I hope it'll get a little bit easier, but right now for us to be able to enjoy the con at all, you got to make the sacrifice. You either leave them with somebody, or you're going to miss a lot of stuff, or you're going to be constantly running and you're also going to miss a lot of stuff.
Or one parent can be actually participating and the other person is with the children.
But I think we've only done one con with our older boy now. He's almost 3 now, but when he was less than 1, we did RavenCon for a weekend where I was on a panelist at RavenCon, and it was tricky. We were lucky my sister-in-law, Helen's sister, was with us, and she helped a lot. And it's, again, if you got the little kids and you really want to be there and involved, you got to get help from somewhere, or you got to be willing to make the sacrifice.
The biggest thing is you definitely miss out on some of the adult activities in the evenings because, well, they have to sleep and somebody has to stay in the hotel room with them. But you're also up a little bit earlier. You get to go see the vendor's room when nobody else is there. It's also kind of nice to see a con from a kid's eyes.
Yep.
What are the kids interested in? They gravitate towards the video games, or they gravitate towards certain art in the art room, or they play board games, and you find out what they really like, and you start getting to notice their personality.
And we also, actually, I remember we took Thing 1, the older boy, before Thing 2 came along, to Farpoint one year, and that was actually a lot of fun for part of it. Again, we missed a lot of stuff, but we got to meet Felicia Day, and she thought our son was adorable and wanted to hold him and all that kind of stuff, and that was fun. And he came face-to-face with a guy in a really spectacular alien xenomorph costume that was just unreal.
In an elevator.
And the xenomorph came face-to-face with our son, and our son just giggled and smiled at him. So, I mean, that's, if you're a geek and you're raising your kids right, they're not going to be scared of the aliens. They're going to have fun with it. They're going to see the Fez, and say Doctor Who and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you do have to use your judgment too about what cons you go to, because I mean there are small cons, like this is a relatively small con, and there are huge ones. I mean, I went to Comic-Con in San Diego in July, and there were people there who had brought their kids, but I can't imagine doing that because it's just there's so many people, and it would just my kids would go crazy.
And there's talk of possibly doing Dragon Con or something like that, and we would not probably bring the kids to Dragon
Not
Con.
unless they could handle
Significantly older.
themselves.
Yeah. 21, I think, would be a good Dragon Con.
And if you're bringing younger kids, I highly recommend staying at whatever the con hotel is.
Yeah.
Just so that if you need to escape, you have a place and a room to escape to. And it helps a lot.
Or if you have friends, like we have friends
Right.
that do all of the cons, regional cons, and they always get the hotel room. They're dinks. They're double income, no kids. They do the stuff all the time, but they're really close to our kids, so there's no problem with us going to their room and hanging out. And that's what it's again. It's the help thing again.
Yeah.
If you have some kind of help, someone that can help you out and give you a spot to go do a nursing or a feeding if you need to, if they're really young,
Or if they get overstimulated.
or a place for a good place for timeout. That's always good.
Yeah, or nap if they're
Or nap.
if they're at the age when they
Or
start
eat.
them. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because the time thing that's always the problem, because there's always cool stuff happening at cons at night, parties,
Mhm.
fun stuff, and parents. That's like the first thing that you sacrifice is fun stuff to do late at night.
Yep.
Unless it's in the house, you're not going to do it. So
Yeah.
it's the same thing happens with cons. Although if you get a hotel room, you can at least swap off. It's like one of you could go do something fun and then come back, and then the other one could do something fun.
But if,
while the kids
like,
are sleeping.
I know the two of us, it's we don't ever want to do that kind of stuff separate. It's always
know,
like,
it's-
oh my
it's
God,
like-
I wish Helen was here with me.
It's true, but it still can be better than just
Oh,
sitting in the room
absolutely.
while the kids are sleeping doing nothing.
Absolutely.
So, there are trade-offs, but
And-
that's the same thing true with all parts of life when you're a parent. So.
Yeah.
And if you can afford it, suites help a lot with that, because
have
then they can
separate
at least be in a separate room and you can be awake watching TV or something like that if you have to. That helps a lot. Once they have to go to sleep and you're trying to be quiet and not watch TV while they're trying to sleep, but it's 8:30, that's tricky.
And this morning, we were up till 12:30 last night enjoying the con because our children are not with us. And we were still up at 6:30 this morning,
Yep.
6:30 this morning because you're just programmed that way. So a con day becomes a lot longer.
Yep.
But at least you
Lot
get
of
to
fun.
relax. So any more questions? Being a geek parent?
Writing for Geek Dad, Geek Mom.
Any geeky
Okay.
topics?
Yeah.
How do you do gaming parties? Parties at home?
Carefully.
Yeah. You have to be careful. If you have friends who also have kids around your kid's age, that can help a lot, because then you can kind of send them, if you have a big enough, if you live in a house that has at least maybe another floor where there's a playroom, you can send them, you say, okay, go play. And then you just kind of keep an ear out for, unhappiness. And then you can pretty much do your gaming. My wife and I do that all the time with friends who live down the street.
The nice thing is, once you have that, how many are actually parents already in here? Okay. The first year and a half, you're in that constant panic stage. I'm going
Dear
to wake
God,
them
don't
up.
wake them up.
Don't wake them up. Oh Lord, don't wake them up, please. Once they get a little bit past that point, they actually, it's almost becomes hard to wake them up. They really can start sleeping really soundly. And the one pair of friends that we have, they're the same ones that do all the cons in the area. They come over and they'll do game night with us, and that's great because the back of their car is nothing but a game store traveling. And he is loud. He is one of the funniest guys we know, and he is very loud, and they never wake them up. So it's a lot of, in your own head, you're worried about waking them up for a while, but in reality, once they get to a good point where they're sleeping through the night and that kind of thing,
Depends on the kid, though.
yeah,
Not every-
that depends on the kid.
Just
Well, and-
one of my kids is a fairly light sleeper, so.
And we went through a long time where we had both kids. Well, we would usually invite them over later, have dinner with them, put the kids to bed, and then game afterwards
Yeah.
till midnight or whatever. And what we did is, if the baby
If we
woke
start
up,
that late.
we would just trade off. I mean,
Yeah.
it would just, it was usually fairly quick, or one of us, we would be on a team, we would play the game in a team, and that way, if we needed to, one of us needed to leave, we could still continue the game. If we needed to both leave, the other thing is making sure that you try and find friends who are okay with you having children.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
That's
that's
true.
that's essential. Yeah.
If you game with other parents, generally they understand if you have to go, tame the screaming child upstairs.
Or lots of cats. People with lots of cats seem to understand
Yeah.
too.
And it's just, you have to be more patient. Again, once they get a little bit older, it's so much easier. But young kids, it's tough. But it is not impossible. Usually you just have to, you have to sacrifice sleep.
Yeah.
Generally, because you will still wake up at the same hour you always do.
Yeah.
There is another issue that can come into play. It has a couple of times with my kids, because they love to play games so much that
Oh.
they want to join.
Yeah.
So you have
Yeah.
to figure out ways of saying this is really for the grown-ups. You
Yeah.
gotta play with your friends.
Or play a
You know.
game early, then send them to bed, and
Yeah,
then
that's
play an
true.
adult game.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That can work too. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Have you ever figured out this with kids in a kitty room or kitty game area?
Like in your own home?
Yeah, when you're having a party with the adults gaming, the kids want to play. How do you?
Again, we've just been doing it. We wait till the kids go to bed. For us, it's before we really do any of the serious gaming where you're laying out Munchkin and stuff like that.
Yeah, in my house we have a furnished basement, so there's a fairly big room there that we have most of the kids. They have lots of toys there and games and such. So we just basically send them down there and they play, and they know where we are if they need us.
But
So-
you could also set up like a kids table and have, if there's multiple kids that come and play, set up a kids game. I'm just using this as an example because you set up Candyland on that game or on that small kids table and have it so that they can play that while you have a large table nearby playing a card game or something. They can still feel like they're playing the game at the same time, and they're not, moving cards around.
The problem is that, at least with my kids, they're so inquisitive. That,
Yeah. That's
they're
the hard part.
They'd be constantly getting, what are you doing? Who's winning? Who's
Or
winning?
or
Why are you
wanting to
doing
sit
that?"
on your
Yeah,
lap.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
What's this card? Hey,
Yeah.
look at everybody. He has this card.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
cool.
So,
Ooh,
having
the doctor.
having a little bit of distance helps
Yeah.
if you can arrange
you
that.
can.
Yeah. So if at all possible, send them to their room to play. If you don't have like a playroom, then
Or out back, or
yeah,
Yeah.
if it's a nice day, send them about in the backyard, and but yeah, trying to get some distance is kind of essential, especially if you're a geek with kids, your kids are probably fairly inquisitive, because you probably are. So they're going to want to know what you're doing, and they're going to be a part of it if they're anywhere nearby. So
And no matter what you do, it's probably tricky if you live in this region. I mean, this isn't one of those things that's national for geek moms and geek dads, but people in this region, there's not a lot of people that have big single-family homes in this area with lots of gaming dens. A lot of us live in apartments, townhouses, condos, or if we are in single-family style homes, small duplexes or stuff like that. So, it's always the fight for space.
yeah. On the other hand, it's still better here than it would be like in the heart of Manhattan. So.
that's true.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
very
So
true.
you're lucky if you have, if the kids have a separate bedroom.
Right, right.
Then you send them to their friend's house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess here's a subway pass wouldn't work, would it?
No.
That's
Well, be back by midnight.
Yeah.
Don't get off the subway, just ride them all
Yeah.
day.
My kids might actually be okay with that.
You'll learn a lot. Might not be stuff you want them to learn.
True.
Yeah.
That's true. But at least the Metro would be better than the New York subway.
That's true.
Yes.
That's true. All right. Any more?
I'll call you guys.
Go ahead.
You talk about the distributed blog, like one of the pieces of stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Geek Dead was started in March of '07 by Chris Anderson, the editor-in-chief of Wired magazine. At first, he just wrote a few posts. He got a couple other people who were writing for Wired, mostly already, like Kevin Kelly wrote a few articles. Asha Dornfest, who writes the Parent Hacks blog, wrote a couple articles. But he decided, that none of them really had enough time to devote to it, so he put out a call for more writers in, I guess, late March, early April of '07, and I submitted my name along with a whole bunch of other guys at the time, and he accepted pretty much everybody, I think, who applied, and then everybody started writing for it. I didn't really get into it at first. I hadn't really done that much blogging at the time. It took me a while to kind of find my voice, but a couple months after that, Chris decided he didn't really have the time to edit it anymore either. So he passed the editing mantle on to Ken Denmead, who was and is now still the editor-in-chief and publisher of Geek Dad, and is the publisher of Geek Mom now. We gradually, kind of went back and forth. We lost some people, we gained some people. We put out a big call in, do you know what year was it? '09?
It was '09.
Yeah, in the spring of '09, we decided we really needed a big influx of people because we had lost a whole bunch of people. And so we put out a big call for it on the blog, and we got tons of applications because of that. We gained a fair bit of popularity at that point. And we've sifted through them, and we asked a bunch of people to be on a provisional basis, and then the people that we really liked, we offered. We said, would you like to become a core contributor? Among those was Brian here. Eventually, speaking just for myself, I found my voice. I started doing more writing. I started also editing because I've always been kind of a compulsive editor anyway. I see a grammatical problem and I kind of have to fix it. So I took on some more of the editing duties and was made assistant editor and then eventually managing editor. We have a really good number of people now. It's fairly stable. Some people don't write as much as they should, but we have 4 editors now: Ken, myself, and Jonathan Liu, and the guy, a man who just goes by Z. So we do the editing. We have about 15 core contributors, I think, including Brian. And then we have a whole bunch of, I think about 20 occasional contributors, and we get guest contributors all the time. So, for the first year or so, we were kind of the odd man out in the Wired blogs. We didn't get much traffic. We had a few spikes here and there when we had a really popular article or something that they decided was worth putting on the front page of Wired.com. And but then we started to grow. We started having more often having the more popular posts. We started to get really noticed to the point where now we regularly get over 1 million page views a month.
And we're pretty big on hitting now Google News and places like that will carry us pretty regularly.
Yeah.
We'll hit them.
Yeah, we've gotten better at the SEO too, the search engine optimization. Making sure we put the keywords in the title so that Google News will grab it if it's something that's newsworthy.
Yeah.
And Geek Mom, we're about ready to hit our 1-year anniversary in October, actually, or end of September.
End of September. Yeah.
End of September. And that was started basically by Ken and Jenny Williams.
Yeah, and Corinna and
but
Kathy and
I think it was originally
I think it was Ken and Jenny.
Ken and Jenny kind of decided that the Geek Moms needed a voice too.
We had been at Maker Faire a number of times out in San Francisco, and we constantly kept getting women coming by the booth saying, "How come there isn't a Geek Mom?"
Yeah.
It's like, well, we'd love to have a Geek Mom, but we just don't. We don't have unlimited time.
Yeah.
All of us have have day jobs. We
and children.
Yeah. Obviously. Yeah. So we'd love to be able to write way more than we do. It's just life.
Yeah.
And now there's been a couple waves of new writers that have come in. Just recently, in about a month ago, a whole bunch of us who had been writing a lot got bumped to core contributors. So I think there's about 15 core contributors now to Geek Mom, and there's 4 editors, and and then Ken is the publisher. And then we have a whole influx of Geek Mom writers, and we write about everything, science to knitting to Doctor Who to, I mean, everything you can think of that you could possibly geek out on, somebody covers it.
Yeah.
And we often get picked up by BlogHer, which is a very big female blogging website. We get picked up and retweeted by a number of groups that are not coming to mind at the moment. BlogHer is the most recent, because one of my articles I found out yesterday, got reposted there. But we're starting to get a name. We've got Carrie Byron, who writes for Geek Mom. She's the Mythbuster, and she's a mom herself, and came and joined about once a month. She'll write an article, which gets us a ton of page views. But we've just recently kind of overpassed the Carrie Byron articles, and in terms of popularity, and
Well, not really surpassed, but
but
the rest of it's.
We've been easily matching what she brings our blog with our own writing, which is great. So we're starting to make a good name for ourselves, and after the first year is when it really takes off. So and we repost on Geek Dad too. So
every day there's at least one cross post. Excuse me. We post like a bit of and a link to the Geek Mom article, because Geek Dad has the more established, longer established fan base. So we figured we can share some of that with Geek Mom.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a question? Oh, I thought you raised your hand. Okay, sorry. That's like it.
Yeah, and it's been really cool. I've gotten a chance to meet a whole lot of people I never expected to meet.
Mm-hmm.
Interview people. I actually got to last fall because the Wired folks, they couldn't get a photographer out when there was the White House Science Fair, hosted by the president, and so they sent me to take photographs. So I was I had to borrow Brian's camera, because I'm not a big photographer. I didn't have. I felt like if I showed up with my little point and shoot, I was going to look like an idiot. So I borrowed his good, actually, real camera. And so it's like, yes, I'm standing in the White House taking photographs. Like I'm actually a journalist. So that's cool. It's been an absolute blast, and every day I say, I wish that I could pay that it paid enough that I could afford to not have a day job and just do that all the time. But sadly, it's not there yet.
Yeah.
But it's branched out into other things too. Ken Denmead has written 2 books, with a 3rd one coming out.
Geek Mom, or Geek Dad 1 and Geek Dad 2. This is original, and this is Weekend Fun.
And the 3rd one, which is the Mad Scientist
Scientist edition.
Yeah, that should be coming out, I think in time for the holidays. I'm not sure.
I think it was November.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure exactly. And we have shirts, which Think Geek sells.
Yeah.
Geek Dad mugs and bumper stickers also.
We have a very good relationship with Think Geek.
Oh, yeah. We love them. They love us. It's great.
Yeah.
Really. They send us cool stuff.
Actually, all 3 of us were at the Marion Call concert over
Yes.
Think Geek headquarters a couple months ago.
Yeah.
That was a ton of fun.
They're just great people.
I can say one thing about having gotten into blogging. I am not a writer. I never was a writer, but I have a lot that I want to tell people. So I've kind of taught myself how to write by blogging, doing the Geek Mom and doing my own blog. I've gotten better about my own writing abilities. I'm much more of a scientist than a writer by far. And he edits a lot of my articles. And I'm learning myself. I'm teaching myself English. By being married to another geek who's a lot better at English than I am. So, I mean, it's just an added bonus to getting into this as an adult in am getting into writing as an adult. That's maybe something that I wasn't very good at as a kid.
And it's what Matt said too. Is it'd be great if we could get paid to do this. If this could be our day
Yes.
jobs.
Yeah.
But I think one of the nice thing about it is that this is what we do all after our day jobs, and we keep doing it because we have a lot of passion for it.
Yeah.
It's not a job for us. It's not something that weighs us down, that we're worried about the next
Right.
paycheck and things like that. It's something we all do with a passion, and we do it because we love it. So that's
Well-
an important part of what's there.
Although ironically, it does actually take some time away that we could be spending with the kids.
Exactly.
Yeah, there is
Yeah, it's like, so, yeah.
I was just going to say that. I'm like, it does take time, and that is a sacrifice, but it is worth it
It is. Yeah.
to share that with other parents.
Yeah, I mean, it's such it's so great. Like when we meet people who read the blog on a regular basis, and like I remember at Maker Faire in last year, somebody came by the table and said, I don't have kids yet, but I've been reading your blog, and now I feel a lot more comfortable about the idea. I feel like I can be a good
I've
parent.
had that a
It's
couple
like,
times.
that's so cool.
That is actually how I even came across Geek Dad to begin with.
Really?
Before I even saw the call for new writers,
Mhm.
we were expecting thing 1, and as I was looking into, okay, I'm going to be a dad. I'm going to do this right, And so I started looking stuff up, and I came across Geek Dad and was an instant fan. And I was actually reading Geek Dad for several months
yeah.
before I actually even became an official father. Before the birthday actually occurred.
Yeah, so it's just really cool to think that we're actually having an effect on other people's lives.
Yeah.
People that we've never met.
Yeah. And I've shared Geek Mom with a lot of my non-geek mom me online boards, and it's been cool to see them go, huh, I didn't realize that was geeky. Well, I
Geeky is
guess
in the
I am
eyes
a
of the
geek if
beholder.
that's considered geeky, or things like that maybe they didn't think of themselves that way, but it's something they have a passion for, and they can get into it in addition to just the normal parenting stuff. So.
What are each of your favorite activities
I love science. I'm a scientist, and I love doing science experiments. So being able to bring my kid in the backyard, we did this the other day to test it out, and load up the Mentos, put it on the Diet Coke, let the kid pull the pin, and watch their face when they see this fountain, or sit and teach. Like, our son loves Doctor Who, and he's
Yes.
almost 3. He is a Doctor Who fanatic.
And that's probably my favorite activity to do with him right now,
Yeah.
is when we watch Doctor Who, because he loves. I actually have, if you've seen the 4-port USB hub TARDIS that's out there, he was actually playing with that so much. I actually cut the long USB cord off of it and tapped into the power converter on it so I could put a battery on it, so that he could still light it up and use the sound and everything.
He takes it to bed, and
Yeah.
that's his little light in his room.
And when the Doctor Who theme's on, when the opening credits are on, he flies it around the room and he sings with it.
Spins around with it, and yeah.
He said Doctor Who as he says Doctor Who with a British accent,
Yeah.
because we watch so much BBC sci-fi and everything like that. He actually says it and loves the TARDIS, and
Yeah.
will say exterminate, and he'll sit in my lap, he'll curl in with me watching Doctor Who, and Daddy, Doctor? Like, yeah, Sean, that's the Doctor. Or Amy?
Yeah,
he loves Amy.
He found these little cupcakes in one of my cupcakes books that were a bride and a groom, and they're the Doctor and Amy because of the bow tie and
Yep.
then the wedding dress.
Yep.
He knows, but he also knows that Matt Smith is his doctor. That's
Yes.
the only doctor that he personally thinks of as his doctor. He knows the rest are the doctor,
He will look at the list of them, and he knows that they're all the Doctor.
including the old ones.
But Matt Smith is his Doctor. Oh, he loves the Three Doctors episode.
Yeah.
From the Third Doctor era.
That
He
is his
loves that.
favorite
He
old
has us
episode.
play that on Netflix all the time. So that's my favorite
Yeah.
right now.
I like my kids love playing video games, doing that a lot. We do some science experiments. Like to play a lot of board games. And one thing I've tried to do is, they both are voracious readers. They both just pick up books and just plow plow right through them. But we every night we sit down and we read something together out loud, and we've been doing that since since they were infants, and I think that's one of the reasons why they're such voracious readers. But that way we can read books that are a little ahead of what they're actually able to read on their own. So we made it like all the way through the Harry Potter series, which before they were really ready to read that on their own. Yeah, we even kept going into the later books, which we weren't quite sure about, but that's right. There's somebody in my son's class who was taking great pleasure in spoiling the later books for him, so we figured we would just read them all, so that way he couldn't be spoiled. They get so much pleasure out of that, just sitting there, and we don't just read geeky books, but it does end up that a lot of them are. So because we seem to have a lot of those in the house for some reason, and so I just love that. It's one of my favorite things to do in my whole day.
How about what ways do you use to determine whether or not certain TV shows or movies are appropriate for you kids? Like websites, specific ones that you use?
Personally, I think we just do a judgment call.
Yeah.
Like, we let them watch Doctor Who. There's nothing that bad on Doctor Who that we can't at least explain, and we don't want to do the over-sheltering thing. You know, if they see some stuff that, it's okay for them to get a little scared. If they get a little scared from the Daleks, that's not such a bad thing.
Right.
There are a couple episodes that are scarier than others.
Yeah, we skip some.
And
but
we skip those on a regular basis because they're a little harder to explain. Like where Rose goes back and saves her dad, and then the Paradox monsters are like eating children and eating people, and it's a lot harder to explain. But it's fun to just get into these things. Although on the other hand,
we skip Torchwood.
Yeah, Torchwood is not a kids show.
There's nothing on there that we find offensive or anything like that. It's just that it's a little more violent, a little more for that. We'll probably let them start watching Torchwood at a younger age than some other parents would, but at this age, we're not going to have it up there. Mostly it's the violence. It's not like I personally mind the violence, but
They
I
don't
also
need to be seeing people shooting each
we've
other
also
with
stopped.
guns. And I like the fact that the Doctor doesn't use a gun.
Yeah.
So that's a big draw of the Doctor versus Torchwood is there's no guns versus guns.
We stopped having them in the room if we were watching Family Guy or something like that. When there had been an episode on, we were still kind of ignorant, thinking, oh, he's not paying attention or anything. And it was where Stewie beat Brian up in an episode, and my son came over and hit me, and it was like,
us.
okay,
All right, no more Family Guy.
no more
for
Family
you.
Guy. And that's
It's kind of a judgment call.
Yeah, it's
for
a
us.
judgment call. There's
It
no
depends on
good
the
hard
kids.
line.
It depends on your kids too.
Yeah.
You're the only one. You're going to know your kids better than anybody else, obviously. So,
Right.
We can't tell you what would work for your kids. But like my son, for instance, has always been very sensitive to peril. So like when characters are in a movie or in peril, I think he identifies too much with them a little bit, and he gets really anxious. So he still has trouble like watching movies even that he's seen before. Like he's 10 and still he's not quite like really wild about like watching even like Finding Nemo when the scuba diver comes and grabs Nemo. Even though he knows it's gonna be okay, at the end he still has an issue with that. So knowing that there's some things that we probably wouldn't necessarily encourage him to watch. But although we try to get him a little outside his comfort zone to try to get him a little
Push.
Yeah, little, so he's not quite as sensitive about
Did you see that Simpsons episode, by the way, where they did the Finding Nemo? Where
No.
Milhouse says, did you know there's a chapter 1 with Nemo's mom? And it's that all the moms have been skipping chapter 1
on the DVD.
And you see Milhouse on the couch, like, shaking.
There's a chapter 1.
There's not a chapter 1. It starts with chapter 2. Nemo doesn't have a mom.
So I guess that means being in Disney films that they never had a dad either.
No,
Yeah, dads never lived very long in Disney films.
Yeah, that's
Well,
true.
and honestly, if you let them watch Disney films, they do get introduced to some danger, some
Oh, yeah.
intense
Cars
moments.
2. Cars 2 had some surprisingly intense moments in it.
Oh, well, heck, I mean, there's Bambi.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Bambi.
well,
We go.
okay, I've never seen Bambi.
Oh, okay.
Snow White, Cinderella, all of them have
They
like
all have
intense.
scary parts. They
Yeah.
really do. Yeah, I mean, they all have death to some degree.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, The Lion King, you know, great movie, but you know, look what happens to Mufasa. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, he loves his dad. His dad is, you know, is taking good care of him, and then suddenly,
He dies.
yeah, he's dead.
And you have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Right.
But they also, they're, like, one thing that I really like is both Geek Mom and Geek Dad are pretty good about reviewing the big kid movies that come out. And I especially like the Geek Dad ones, where you mention some of the good things, some of the bad things, parts in the movie that are okay to, like, leave and go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
aren't that important, so if you bring your kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, we started doing that. I can't remember exactly how long ago, but we got onto it's like a 10 things parents should know about
Yeah.
whatever movie.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like the specific kid-oriented movies. Sometimes it's the things that aren't necessarily aimed at kids, but you can see why people might want to bring their kids to. We've also done some things that are just not at all appropriate for kids, but
Right.
but that's okay. But it's, you know, we talk about, you know, will you like the movie, will your kids like the movie, and then we also say, you know, okay, well, why is it rated what it's rated? You know, if it's PG-13, well, okay, really, how PG-13 is it? You know, and then also, yeah, as Helen said, you know, when's a good time? If you know you need to take a bathroom break, what scenes should you look for when it's okay to do that without
What
missing
scenes does it
missing key plot points? You know.
But the important thing is we give parents a lot of information for them to make a decision themselves.
Yeah.
You won't see Geek Mom or Geek Dad have a post of, won't somebody please think of the children or something like
Yeah.
that. You know, it's here's the information, you make the call as a parent.
Unless,
Yeah.
of course, it's like a Justin Bieber movie.
Well,
Somebody,
that's, yeah,
please, dear God,
yeah,
the
don't,
children.
I'm
don't
pretty
subject your children
sure
to that.
nobody would actually post about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably not.
But no,
But we do have to think about our nation's youth with that.
We do things like, I mean, we don't, you know, we don't gloss over it. Like if we think a movie's bad, we're going to tell
Yeah.
them. Like we posted a review of Conan, and it's like, this is just a bad movie.
Bad.
You know, just don't, really. It's not worth it. Yeah, but to just, you know, and also another thing we have to say is because so many movies now have the things after the credits
Yeah.
to tell you whether you really need to stay or not, because otherwise you make your kids sit in the seats and they're squirming and want to get up and go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you find out there's nothing at the end. That sucks.
And you're like, aw. Why are we still in the theater?
Yeah.
Yeah. 'Cause,
Although honestly, the movie theater experience we've only done once so far for Cars 2 with thing number 1.
Yeah.
So it's we'll have plenty more
We're
experiences.
learning
Yeah.
ourselves.
yeah, it's taking your kids to the theater. You have to be careful what movies you do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we try to avoid the 3D movies just because.
Yeah, kids generally have a hard time with the 3D movies, so just
Yeah.
play it by ear.
Yeah, I also tend to get a headache from 3D movies.
I do too,
So I
so.
try to avoid it. The only time I really go to 3D movies is because I you know, from being on Geek Dad, I do get invited to previews now and then. So often those are in 3D, and I don't have the option of seeing it in 2D because it's a preview.
Or some IMAX
Yeah.
movies that are
Yeah.
worth seeing are in 3D.
Well, that's actually been. I mean, there's actually been a couple movies. Like there's, I can't remember what it was called. It was put out by Disney, I think, but it was a movie about. It was filmed. It was in Africa. It was lions. It was like a pack of lions and cheetahs in the same area. I mean, it was a beautiful movie, and you know, it was documentary, and it was just gorgeous. And it was shot in 3D, and it actually really did add to it being in 3D because you could really get more of a feel for, you know, the movement of the animals, and really, the scenery was just gorgeous in 3D too. So.
I think movies like that, or the IMAX Space Station 3D
Oh, yeah.
movie. You know, a lot of movies like that where you're either just looking at broad landscapes and it's a single camera point of view anyway, or it's going to be a first person point of view like they did with some of the 3D on the IMAX movie where like it was the simulated astronaut going hand over hand up the side of the station. That lends itself better to the 3D, I think. Action scenes and things like that where people might want to shift their focus, but they can't because their focus is
Yeah.
only good in one spot because of the 3D. It breaks down for me at that point.
And movies that are converted, like they asked me to go to a preview of The Lion King 3D, which just came out, and it was just totally, the 3D was totally useless. It's like, because it was, of course, not made for 3D, and whatever, it didn't really detract from it, but it didn't add to it either. And of course, the big problem with 3D with something like that is that it makes everything darker, because you're inherently each eye is only getting half the light. That's how it works. So everything gets darker, and then you lose some detail because of that. When it's supposed to make things more detailed, you actually get less. So that was like when the Harry Potter's Book 7, movie 2 came out. Because when the first one came out, it wasn't in 3D at all. The second one came out, we made an effort to find a 2D theater to see it in, because I knew it was going to be fairly dark in places, because we've read the book, and we figured we wouldn't be able to see the things on the screen if it was in 3D. So, and we felt we totally did not miss anything by not seeing it in 3D.
Speaking of movies, I don't know if you guys heard yesterday about, I'm sure this was not a slam towards any other movie director or producer, but Steven Spielberg came out yesterday and said he greatly regretted the changes he made to E.T. and has worked with the release company. They're doing the Blu-ray release soon for E.T., and he has made sure to guarantee that there will be an original edition as well as the re-release in the Blu-ray packaging, and he said he will never touch one of his movies like that again. I'm sure it wasn't a slam to anybody. I know there's no directors out there that are doing anything like that. But
I don't think he actually meant to. I mean, because
Yeah.
he and Lucas are actually
Right.
very good friends.
But
they worked together.
it
in
was
Indiana Jones films,
refreshing
but
to hear.
It was, yeah. Well, he was at the they were showing a 30th anniversary showing of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
And doesn't that make you feel old? Anyway, he was talking to the audience about it, and he said, "So what do you guys feel about it? How would you like the Blu-ray just having the original version?" And there were uproarious applause.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "Yeah, I think this is what we're going to do." He said, "I really regret the changes that we made to ET, with switching the handguns for walkie-talkies." And
But my hope would be that's with someone as big name as Spielberg coming out and saying that.
well,
Not just the Star Wars stuff, but you stop seeing this. Okay, we're going to re-release Lion King in 3D and things like that. That
Yeah.
you're making pointless changes to a movie, and
No, I think we're going to still see the re-releases in 3D because
Yeah.
the people who are doing that clearly
Well, that-
they just want to milk the cash
Right.
cow.
That
That's all
that
they're
Disney
doing.
always does this release from the
vaults.
re-release. So that
Yeah.
I mean, of course they're going to do it in 3D if they have the chance.
Of course, because they can charge more money, more money for it.
Yeah.
And plus you can bring back a movie that hasn't been around for 20 years, and you can
People
get
are
more
gonna
money
see
from
it
it.
again.
Like they're about to put Top Gun back in the theaters in 3D because that's necessary.
They're remaking that, so that'll be.
Or they're
They're
remaking.
remaking Top Gun.
Are they?
Remaking Top Gun.
I heard they're also remaking Point Break, which I don't know either.
That's even funnier.
Yeah.
Well, that needed to happen. That had to happen. I mean, that was. How could you not?
And speaking of things with Keanu Reeves, they're also making a third Bill and Ted movie.
That I had not heard either.
Which, but I don't see how that's going to work because George Carlin's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't see how that's going to be nearly
Yeah,
as good
that
as the original.
actually that was in Cars 2. The lack of George Carlin doing the voice was noticeable to me.
Yeah.
I thought that was a definite loss.
Yeah. Yes, I don't see how that's going to work, but
But Ghostbusters 3 might be good.
Although
I'm
Bill
hopeful.
Murray might not be in it.
yeah,
Yeah, but at least if Dan Aykroyd and
Harold Ramis.
Hal Ramis are doing the writing, at least it's there. At least it's not like, okay, someone else is going to come in and
Yeah.
do something new with the franchise. It's
I gotta admit, I'm not too. I'm holding off thinking because I remember enjoying the idea of Ghostbusters 2, and then I saw it. So-
The game.
The game was
Yeah,
very-
the game
was
just came
good.
out.
The game was
last
very
year,
good.
was that?
Yeah, it was about a
Yeah.
year ago. Yeah, that was very
really
good, and having all the voices was really excellent.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean they're all I don't know they're all pretty long in the tooth, shall we say?
Yes. Well, apparently that's going to be one of the things they
Oh, I know.
play up. Like Dan Aykroyd's character, he can't drive the car anymore because of his bad knee, and it's Harold Ramis. He can't fit the proton pack on anymore and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm afraid that it may be too much like
Too campy.
Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
That-
The action kind of
Yeah.
thing with a star who's really not old enough, who's really too old to play
Yeah.
action and not realizing it. Yeah, that fills me with fear.
Yeah.
Not that it was an unwatchable movie, but Indy 4 was just not. It was not a good movie.
I was such a huge Ghostbusters fan, and as a kid growing up and loved Ghostbusters so much,
Oh, I was too.
hopeful. Well, I'm having a hopeful optimism with.
But you've seen Ghostbusters too, yes?
I did, but I was a kid.
Oh,
We talked
okay.
about this yesterday. We talked like we were talking about this yesterday. He was talking about how terrible first season of Next Generation was. To me, I was in middle school when it came out. I loved it. To me, it was, I had watched the original series with my uncle and my dad growing up as a kid, and now here was the Next Generation, and I loved it. So to me, all 7 seasons of Next Generation is good to me. But I was.
Have you gone back and watched it?
Yeah, I still enjoy it. There's a nostalgia, but then there's a nostalgia factor to it.
All right.
Okay.
Is there any other questions?
We're planning to have kids not in the two-part. Do you have any advice for not yet parents, to-be parents?
Sleep now. And because it doesn't, and honestly, parents scare other parents to be with that, but it doesn't last forever. It's not like sleep now because you're never going to sleep again. But the beginning's hard, and you got to be prepared for that. If you think it's just a joke when people say that, then get your sleep and be ready for your sleep cycle to be interrupted for a while.
Yeah.
But that's.
And if multiples run in your family, be very aware that you're going to have even less sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know some parents of multiples, and
Yeah.
it's I don't know how they manage to sleep at all, honestly.
Yeah.
Yes. Don't read
Yeah.
what to expect when you're expecting, because
Oh,
it's like
That's the Shining for parents
Yes.
to be.
It's terrible. Like it makes
you hide it in the freezer after you read a few chapters.
Oh yeah, I remember there's like a line where it tells you like if you're having a bowl of ice, if the pregnant woman is having a bowl of ice cream, like that sounds like she should be aware that she's doing bad things for her
Yes.
child.
Yeah.
It's like, no, really, no.
Yeah, and
It's like
it's
no.
like
One bowl of ice cream is not going to hurt the baby.
here is like all the things that here's the symptoms. Here is all the worst case scenarios that could possibly be.
Yeah.
It's like reading
Yeah.
reading a bottle, the actual side effects of aspirin.
Yeah.
If you actually read the possible side effects
Yeah.
of aspirin, death is one of them.
Yeah.
Death can be caused by aspirin.
It's one in a
So,
3 million
you think
chance
about
or
it
something
that way.
ridiculous,
Yeah,
but
right. It could also be caused by a glass
That's
of water.
just my
so-
least
yeah,
favorite
exactly.
Yeah, it's
pregnancy
yeah,
book.
it exists
because of
only to
that.
scare people. It really does.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
But in
Oh.
terms of being, expecting kids or
Well, yeah,
planning
what-
kids as a geek,
What aspect of it are you curious about? Is there anything in particular?
Well, we just don't know what to expect, to be honest. We're just starting to get a house, so
I'd say personally, just your life is going to change, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to end.
Right.
And if you are willing to, take it day by day and take a deep breath when things get crazy, and
don't have too
don't
many.
change your life too much.
Yeah.
And if you feel like you think you have no idea if you're going to be a good parent or not, that's exactly the way
That's
that
good.
people who become good parents feel
Yeah.
when they're about to become parents.
And
They're-
you can't listen to this always happens, because everyone has different opinions of
Yeah.
this always happens or that always happens. And I remember there was a couple things like that. I didn't listen to all of that, but there were a couple of things in that vein that I paid a little too much attention to, and when it didn't turn out to be that way, it completely threw me
Right.
off. So because I was expecting that, and it's one of those things you just got to be flexible and roll with it, because it's fun too. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
And,
Kids
and
are-
every kid is different. So
Yeah.
people tell you, they do this at this age, or they do
Right.
this. It's like, well, maybe your kid did, but that doesn't mean that my
Right.
kid will.
Yeah.
And for instance, my kids are really different from each other.
Yeah.
Same parents, but
Yeah.
they're very,
Very
they're
different
wildly different
personalities.
personalities. And so, just somebody tells you something happens to kids,
Yeah.
maybe it'll happen to your kid that way. Maybe it won't. So,
Yeah.
What are the best books to read for geeks versus
well.
In terms of like infants, I
replacement for the standard books that are sort of
I really liked what was that? The instruction manual from new parents.
Yes.
That
yes.
is one of my favorites.
That was good.
it is like, it's like a how-to guide for children. And it's fun because it's got like a diagram of a child and then a diagram of a diaper. And like step 1, open the diaper. And it does it in a humorous way, but for a geek or an engineer or anybody who is a new parent, it's kind of nice. Like our parents at our baby shower gave it to us in a glass case with a hammer.
Sean.
Or Sean did, with that said, break in case of emergency.
That's our children's uncle right there.
Yeah. So I mean, it's what is it? The instruction or how-to guide for kids. It actually has like a line drawing of a child on the front, and it's a blue cover. There's a toddler's one.
I think there's a cat and a dog one or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorites for kids. I like some of in terms of pregnancy, my favorite ones are like the Mayo Clinic Guide to Pregnancy, things like that, rather than some of the other ones.
Yeah, it's much. Yeah, I remember that was much more matter of fact,
Factual.
much less. This is what you should do, like as if every pregnancy were exactly the same,
And that, one of the things you're going to find if you read a lot of the mainstream books
Baby's
is
owner's manual.
Yeah.
the baby owners.
Yeah. One of the things you're going to find is that it's really written for parents to be that have no clue. And I'm not talking for those of you that are parents to be or planning or anything like that, and you're thinking, oh, well, that's me because I don't know how to change a diaper or something like that. No. There's stuff in some of these books like, if your child's crying and it's been 8 hours since they last ate, they might be hungry. And it's like, well, yeah, thank you for that brilliant piece of it.
People
But
who have no comments.
There's people that we went to like baby classes and stuff like that just because we thought, oh, okay, baby class. And we'd hear stuff like that, and we're like, really? And other parents are like, oh, yeah, wow. Wow, please
Check
don't.
diaper.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
So there's a lot of things that if you're just using common sense, you're going to do.
You'll do
going to
just
do
fine.
fine. Very few people are ever going to fail at being a parent. You're gonna have your kid. You're gonna love them because they're yours. That's an extraordinary moment. I was terrified of holding babies. I never held babies before my own, and I was just terrified of the thought of holding them or hurting them or something like that. Our first was born, and in the hospital, they handed him to me, and I instantly knew. It was like instinct. I could hold him, I could change him, I could pass him around, I could do all that. Something kicked in, it was just instinct. It was really wild from a evolutionary science and sociological standpoint. It was like, whoa, where did that come from? That was wild. But it's if you're common sense about it, you're going to do great.
And once you decide, I'm ready to have kids, you're ready to have kids.
Yeah.
That's the key is once you make that determination, you'll be fine.
As long as you're having them because you want them.
Because you want them and not because somebody else convinced
It's
you
pressuring
time or
it's time to do. I guess now we have to have the kids because that's what we should do now, or something like that. You gotta want those kids.
Once you decide it's time, you're ready.
Yeah. Although you just before the birth happens, you will have moments of panic, like I'm totally not ready for this.
No,
that's perfectly
Why
normal.
did I do this?
That's
Or
perfectly
as
normal.
Brian's favorite thing when thing number 2 came and I was in labor. We were driving to the hospital, and I turned to him.
Well, wait. Good news for all the moms to be out there is that at some point you do kind of forget all the stuff about all the chemicals that go through your body that. Of how much it hurts, so you kind of forget about it. That's actually true. There's a lot of science behind that, because as we're driving in for things number 2's delivery,
I turned to Brian,
already crying.
in between contractions, going, in sheer terror, this is gonna hurt.
And it really wasn't that bad. Actually, it was better than the first time.
He did everything he could not to break out in
I was
complete
supportive as I could be.
crying laughter because I would have lost it.
But it actually, and it went better
really
than the first
isn't
one.
That bad. It's
It really
just that
did.
sheer panic as a parent. You're like, oh crap,
And
I'm
it's
doing
okay.
this again.
When you get there, don't think, oh, that's bad. No, it's normal and.
And you'll get through things. My son, my older child, was 5.5 weeks early.
Yeah.
So we were completely not prepared.
Mm.
You know, we didn't have bag packed or anything because we had time, right? We hadn't taken the class. The furniture was supposed to arrive like the next week after that.
Yeah.
You know, the changing table and everything, and so it was like, okay, I took my wife to the hospital. The baby wasn't quite being born yet. They were trying to hold that off for a little while. And meanwhile, I'm running around like a madman trying to get everything. You know, like our camera had been broken. We were about to get it fixed. It's like, okay, buying a new camera. You know, just running around like crazy, which was the end result of which I had almost no sleep and ended up getting a horrible stomach flu and couldn't get out of bed, which was fun. But yeah, but we made it through. It's fine, and and he's fine.
And that's the job of being a dad.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much.
So that's us.
Yeah, I think so.
We're Geek
Now,
Mom, Geek Dad.
I do have cool stuff to give away here.
Oh, let's do giveaways, and then if you want to ask us more questions, you can either find us or.
I don't have
ask us
unlimited
after.
numbers of things, unfortunately, but
Okay.
I do have shirts and several copies of the book. How do you think we should do it?
I don't know.
Who has?
Um,
Who has the most kids?
yeah.
Who has? I don't know, more than 3 kids. Anybody?
Who has more than 2 kids?
Well, 3.
Or
Well, 3.
3 or more? 2 kids?
Okay.
Do we have a prize for you?
Yeah.
Trust me, you deserve a prize.
Would you like a shirt, Austin? No, it's regular X, I'm afraid. So, yeah.
And I don't have the red, I don't have this X.
It's also
And it's signed.
It's signed by Ken.
Yeah. There was our parents to be like actually pregnant now?
Come on up and
Yeah.
grab a prize. Yay, congratulations.
Would you like a shirt for your partner? or for you if you want. We don't have any Geek Mom shirts, I'm afraid. What size?
There you go. Congrats.
Yeah.
Who
Two more.
has
2 more books. 2 more books. And
who
a
has
bunch more.
the youngest kid?
Oh, that's not something just ask.
Okay, a kid 6 months or younger.
A year or younger?
A year or younger?
Huh?
You
He
do.
can.
You're
You
fine.
could
You're
get
fine.
it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Our niece will be 1 in December.
And let's see.
I hope.
I don't know.
Who has read Geek Mom or Geek Dad?
That's everybody.
How many things do we have left?
We have 1 book and 5 shirts.
Why don't you give one book to them and the shirts to the other?
That makes sense.
Okay,
Yeah.
come on up. Whoever hasn't gotten a prize yet, come
Yeah.
on up, and we're just gonna.
Afraid we have
First come, first serve. Try and grab.
2 mediums, 2 larges.